Some call me the Oracle, some call me Whitestar, Equisal, Salal to Spokes, tactically Whitestar Eagle Visions. I earn these names traditionally. I'm a pipe carrier, a lodge keeper, I'm a prophecy teacher. Right now, as a species, we are going through this amazing revolution. And you're a part of it. You know, way back in 2012 when nothing happened, so much happened. But they forgot to tell you. They forgot to show you. I'm sure you recognize the whole world is in a real interesting place right now. And the prophecies are clear that the past is coming to an end, is being dismantled as gently as possible, but definitively being dismantled. And you, as a human, are becoming so much more than you used to be. New chakras, frequencies, new energies, new awareness, new science. You want to keep up? Come hang out with me once a week. We're going to talk about some really interesting stuff. Weird is the new sexy, they tell me. So come on, let's get weird together. Attack Ice. See you soon. Hey, how you doing? The scent of citrus. Did you know that the human olfactory sense is programmed in such a manner that when we receive the scent of citrus, be it oranges or grapefruits or some other citrus, it actually kind of shifts the alchemy in our brain just a little bit and kind of becomes a bit of a truth serum. Fascinating, eh? So, and yeah, I mean, I want you to try it at home. There are certain people who have a frequency about them that when you introduce the scent of citrus to it, oh, they just explode with this truth serum energy, and it's impossible to lie to them, even if you're the best liar on the freaking planet. And, you know, so yes, I recommend maybe, you know, use for catching some of those lying buggers. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they'll stumble. It'll be just so obvious to you and them that they've been caught in a lie. That's just how it's going to land, I promise, right? And so, you know, yes, use, you know, citrus as a bit of a tool, you know, if you like. And if you want to step more into aromatherapy, of course, you know, we're going to cover that a little bit here at some point, you know, in Whitestar teachings, and how that has such a powerful influence. Aromatherapy, this is one of our biggest senses in our world, and yet so many of us are ignorant to how it could potentially be, you know, planting puppet strings on us, and others are controlling it because they have a little more technology available and knowledge available to them than you do, you know. And so I implore you to do a lot of research and really recognize just how powerful smell is, and the science that's around that these days. You know, it's a really big deal. But to be honest, citrus, being the truth serum, could potentially help you find the truth in something too. You know, if even you're floundering inside yourself, what's my truth on this particular topic or subject and what have you? You know, everybody walking up to a liar and saying, "Hey, I'm eating this. You want a piece? You know, there's something I've been meaning to talk to you about." Yeah, you know, I mean, and yes, absolutely. Try it. You're gonna just really appreciate the results if you like hearing the truth. Anyway, found out that's not necessarily always true either. The hard way. People love people who speak the truth unless they're speaking it about them. Yes, I'm talking to you. But it's interesting. Our world. Oh yeah, you might have noticed I'm not coming to you from my home studio, my home, you know, temple, my sanctuary. I was coming out of this retreat up at Vedette Lake, center of the universe. If you have an opportunity, just Google that and you're going to find out where I was at. And I have a lodge there. Powerful. I first showed up on this location many years ago. Unfortunately, a couple of the elders who were monitoring and running a lodge on this location, you know, a couple took ill and two passed away. And when I came across it, here's this lodge suffering, obviously suffering, and it either needed to be put out of its misery, you know, and or I couldn't, as a lodge keeper, member of Lodge Keeper Society, etc., I could not have just left it alone like that. It was in such disrepair, and not just maintenance, but it was suffering, you know. And so I asked around, and you know, the problem with asking around sometimes is that when you show you have an interest in something, they put you in charge, you know. And so I worked with the Sesquemic people out of, you know, the area, and the elders came out, and you know, they harvested the willow with us, and we had yellow willow for, you know, the cage itself, and red willow, you know, for the door, and We built it according to their teachings and their instruction. And, I've been running, lodge myself for quite a few years, quite a few decades actually. And it's one of my favorite ways to stay healthy on all levels. And so I was up here at the center of the universe, and I've had the privilege, the honor of, running these ceremonies in this space. And this weekend was no different than that. But coming out, here I am driving my fancy Tesla, I guess I took the car, that's what I drive. And so well, that's funny because one of the fellows who used to live on the property was an EV hater. And as soon as I pulled on the property, every time I would stop by and apologize to him for bringing a Tesla onto his property, right? It's funny as heck. We both laugh and da-da-da-da, right? But so I get it, all that. But on the way out, I blew one of my tires, bam, and now here I am stranded in a place called Cache Creek. Cache Creek and Ashcroft actually have a bit of a history. Fascinating. My granny, who, yes, that's Irish for grandma, right? My granny passed away a while back, and I'm just about to receive a little bit of, some of her inheritance actually this week. And, abundance in our world, and yay, but I miss granny, right? What's interesting is I find myself now here, broken tire, and I swear to goodness, I'm 10 minutes away from her house I used to visit when I was a kid. And, maybe there's no coincidence in that, right? But at the end of the day, I fugged around and found out I didn't have a spare. And so now I'm having to wait a couple of days for them to order, something that'll, work for my car. And in the meantime, Luna, my wife, and I have found nothing but pleasure in this little mini vacation that the universe has claimed for us. And, there's a little romantic part of me, of course, that, maybe wonders if maybe Granny had her hand in that too, right? Maybe she wants grandkids, just saying. I know. That's just the way I think, for sure. But I mean, what if you can have everything, why not? It's an interesting dynamic. Today, we're going to cover a little bit about poverty consciousness, I guess is the best way for me to put it. I see so often that, I'm in a hotel room and the halo. I did that on purpose, of course. Here I am being all angelic and saint-like, right? Saint David, But this lady we're gonna bring on here today is interesting. She's a spitfire. Yeah, she's from Texas, and they don't pull their punches down there, that's for sure. And not just that, but I see her flexing in her world metaphysically and coaching and empowering others and making a difference and showing up. And I see her doing so by helping people, build empires, by really being okay with creating abundance in their world. I see this poverty conscious so often, unfortunately, even the dynamic of exchanging energetics for the shaman. There was a time when the shaman's hut was visited first, because the hunt went good. And, he may have prayed just right, And, so they'd stop off there first, and that shaman would, I'll take this piece, and, carve out what he needed. And, and on it went, and everyone got their share, But it's interesting because today the shaman, the clients show up when they're ailing. I promise if you pay your shaman in advance, you might not have to get to I'm ailing and I need help. The proactive dynamics of everything makes a significant difference in life, I promise. But what's happening here, what I'm seeing in our common world is, they're coming to the table because they're broken, ailing in some way, shape, or form, and negotiating their well-being by exchange, and whatever that negotiation may or may not need or be, kind of idea. From a shaman's perspective, that takes our energy, what I'm saying, and actually places us into a dynamic that doesn't necessarily create a win-win, right? And I get it. You're not going to Safeway or wherever you buy your food from and saying, hey, you know what? I should buy an extra bundle of apples and just drop it by my shaman because it's been a good week. It's just not there anymore, right? I get it. I'm just sharing with you that what I prefer. Let's build abundance together. People give me a hard time over the years about even charging for what I do. And I do what I do real good, saving lives, deep, dark stuff and amazing stuff. And, but it's on me to pay for it. I've been looking after me and, this vessel and a family and all of that stuff for a long time, on this planet. And I'm proud to say every red cent I've ever earned is because I helped somebody and I made a difference someplace, but it hasn't been easy. And I swear to goodness, if there was a way for me to take this juice that I am and have it rain abundance, doesn't have to be money. I learned firsthand, people don't necessarily want to be a millionaire. They want to live a life that a millionaire lives. There's a big difference between the two. I'll say that again. Most people don't want to be a millionaire. They want to live a life that a millionaire lives. And there's a difference between the two. And on that note, I got to have Jennifer come on out and introduce herself. If you don't mind. Oh, there she is from Texas. Dun, dun, dun. We don't have any, fireworks or lights or nothing like that, but I'm so glad to see you here. And I would love nothing better if you would spend the first little bit of this time and introduce you.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. And thank you for the lovely introduction. Prosperity consciousness is something that I've had to work on, as well as many of us. I think a lot of us come from a background where it's been an interesting story growing up. We've had experiences. Myself, I was raised by a single mom who worked 3 jobs. So that poverty consciousness was set in. But when it came to me stepping out and embracing my calling or callings, because I have many, I had to work through the poverty consciousness. And I love how you said about the shaman. That's a fine line with a lot of things, even with tech side in the spiritual realm, working with spiritual people or in that's where my niche is. Those are the clients that I mainly work with. I can see that when it comes to the price structure and the honest energy exchange for whatever it is you're offering, whether that be a healing or because I do healings. And then in my case, I also help people build their foundation as it pertains to their online business. So either one requires a lot of energy to go in. And at the end of the day, requires a compensation. So one of the things that I learned on this journey is that it's an energy, it's a frequency. And I had a mentor one time that said that even if you are providing a service and to get out of doing the honest energy exchange, because when you have something physical, whether that be in a dollar bill, an apple, an item, or something along those lines, when you give it to the other person, it's a physical thing that the universe is seeing you do, and it comes back. And the more that this community gets on board and does that, we could dramatically change the economic system.
Totally.
And most people don't realize that. Even, you don't have to be in a spiritual realm. If the people all got together, we could really start to change how economics run.
I'll share a story with you.
Yeah.
And we're not done hearing about you yet. Trust me. Okay. I mean, but
I know.
At one point, I even actually helped run some of the psychic fairs, right? Okay. And that's a snake put for con artists and and all the worst of it. And one of the biggest problems with actually running up the psychic fairs is that your competition is right beside you, right? So, whether they're good people or not good people, they're literally and you got a whole room full of witches and hexes start, and etc. And suddenly you got this this icky place that nobody wants to work in. Never mind clients coming in, and it's interesting because I kind of changed things a little bit when I was producing them. In one, we had authentic healers, psychics, etc. showing up, right? They had to be authentic, not just con artists, right? For sure. But we changed the mindset that when the client showed up at the front door, for example, okay, as soon as they're coming in, and if you're sitting there as a psychic, watching people come in, if you are actually a psychic and you're really good at reading, you actually already know which booth that person's supposed to end up in. We all know, right? We can literally take a look at that person and, just, oh no, this reader over here is exactly where they should be ending up. Let's all of us work really hard to make sure that actually happens. Instead of us, scrambling over that extra $20 out of their pocket, because I can appreciate your worry that your kids need milk and, and life and all that stuff. Instead of even bringing that energy in, instead, let's focus on what the client needs first and foremost. Humor me on this, and lean in that way. I swear to God, the best shows ever, bulging
Mm-hmm.
pockets, full of money, and the clients raved. The testimonials were beyond reproach. You know what I'm saying? Because the energy and the vibe was cooperative too, right? In the whole room. And then I was one of the first psychics ever to have a client. I looked right at her and I said, "You're not mine." And I grabbed her by the hand and introduced her to somebody I didn't even like, but I knew damn well that was a better reading. Yeah, and she was just come to see me because it was a recommendation, not because I was a better reader for her, right?
Right.
And I swear to God, it had nothing but positive impact, everywhere that we looked. And so it only takes that one person. So that one person who's out there, listen to Jennifer. I think she's on the right track. We have this new economic consciousness that's showing up here, right? The Draconian Empire is being dismantled. We know that. I mean, it's on its way out already to be replaced by something that actually makes sense, right?
Absolutely.
Totally, totally. So, I
And
mean, please, I'll get out of your way
well,
now. Yeah.
and just like what you're doing, so you brought me on the show, you have other people coming on the show, and we are talking about what we offer the collective. I do the same thing through my podcast, and I've got nothing but positive results because it's not about me. Nowhere in this whole thing of us coming down and flipping a planet isn't an I thing. It is a we thing.
Totally.
And, we are dismantling all sorts of different structures, and we need all hands on deck in all areas.
Yep.
And unfortunately, we are not yet in a society where we are cashless.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know if me or you will ever see that in our lifetime, but some of those things do require us to get, to have money.
Totally.
Most of my prosperity that has come back in has gone right back into my teachings. It's gone right back into the school of what I'm building, all sorts of different projects to help the collective. And a lot of us do that.
Totally. Well, it's interesting because there's this balancing act that and you really kind of touched on something here about money, cash, commerce. Commerce will always continue. It's always been,
Yes.
and it will always continue moving forward. What's interesting is that instead of having to know how to build a car, I just got to know how to get this thing. We'll use the money, this thing, cash. Does it make sense, right? And I can exchange something that, if all you have to do is earn money, nothing else, it makes things pretty simple. Does it make sense, right? And so rather than having to have all these other skills. You see, I've lived off grid before. I've lived in these manners where in order to eat, you had to put in so much time. Any farmer, or even if you got a hobby farm, will tell you there's so much time that has to go into that egg, and so much,
Yes.
and so you're exchanging your time for energy, money anyway, no matter what. Sometimes that money energy comes in and it's real convenient. Complacency, so right, I mean, so it's not necessarily guns kill people, but it's people kill people with guns. The money in of
Exactly.
itself isn't necessarily evil or wrong. Where it goes wrong, I think, in my world, is the hoarding aspect of it. Does that make sense? And that creates this power displacement, right? If we could put an expiry date, for example, in every dollar bill, maybe things might be different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just keep things flowing and shifting. But it's my belief system that we're going to invent something completely different yet. That's not even attached. It has something much broader strokes, right? So
Oh, absolutely. I believe that too, because I mean, the honesty of it, most in the world, I'm not so much familiar with Canadian money, but in the United States, I mean, I might as well get my Monopoly game out and use it
true.
because
It's Yeah, it's
That's
worthless.
all it is. It's not backed by a damn thing, guys. And
Correct.
most money in the world is not.
Mhm.
So, way back when they had, they were trading through different items of whatever they were making.
Tulips or
They were
gold or
gold,
totally.
silver, jewels, that type of thing. But the dollar bill, I mean, the way that I had to switch my thinking is that okay, I'm seeing something, it is like a monopoly, but it's the energy. And I'm using that energy to trade for whatever it is I'm getting, services, food, stuff that I need. So yeah, it's poverty. I mean, growing up, the way that I was raised to view money has had to dramatically shift through this whole journey. And like you said, it can be used for good things and it can be used for nefarious things.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I learned along this journey was the first mentor that I invested in was a pretty penny. And that was the most money I had ever spent on myself in my entire life. So my self-confidence went up spending that. But two, there's nothing like lighting a fire underneath your ass to take something serious when it has a high price tag on it. And guys, that can be $500 to 10,000, 20,000, whatever you want to classify it as. But
Another story I want to validate. This is huge as well. This is powerful stuff. I was the first guy in Canada to offer $100 reading. Seriously. I swear to God, I was at a psychic fair and they were taking pictures of my booth and sending it to people across the country. He's charging $100, right? Now, what got me there was I was in competition with all these $20, $25 readers, right? But they were, as quickly as they can, getting them in and out, right? The revolving door, kind of hit.
Yes.
Whereas I'm the kind of reader I want to sit down and I want to really offer you something of value. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a circus act. I'm not going to do psychic tricks, right? But
right.
Give me an hour of your time, I'll change your life, right? And so if I'm going to spend a whole hour with somebody, I might as well charge for the whole hour, right? And so I was, at the end of the day, I was probably making the same amount of money in my back pocket, but I took me more serious, and the clients that came to see me did so also. It just made a difference. Absolutely.
And that reading will probably stick with them more than the $20 one.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it was probably just a weekly review.
Truly, absolutely. Yeah. And again, I think so, but I have a bias, right? Because that's how I ran my practice. There was one fella, Stan. He literally had this box van truck thing that he would pull into a psychic fair, drive it right in. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? He would park it and he would open up the panels. And he had these stools, and he would have people sit on these stools, and like a carnival act, he would like shuffle a deck of tarot, and he just like, right, and he would literally have this like 8 people receiving, from the same deck, same shuffle, right, But I swear to goodness, I watched him in action a couple of times. He was good. Just the 2 cards he gave to that person on that stool, he would pick it up, give him like 5 sentences, move on to the next, move on to the next, move on to the next. And he was charging cheap. And for a while, him and I, just for giggles, he'd go, "So what'd you make?" And I go, "Well, that's what I make." And we were within $20 so often, but we ran our practices in such diametrical perspectives. Does it make sense, right?
Absolutely.
So I have a bias definitely in that. Let's spend some time together, etc. But I can't judge the $20 act either, right? As long as you're showing up authentically and you hit it nail on the head for good value for service, right? What I'm saying? What I'm saying? It's about finding your worth and how you want to express it and putting the right price tag on it, right? For sure.
Yes. Yeah. Well, what I was going to say, and that's great. That's a perfect story for me to lead into this, is that, even when you do pay for that price, there's courses that I have a course that's over 6 hours long that I offer. That's a intro course. And most people don't take that of value because it doesn't have the huge price tag on it.
Got it.
So it's really just the perception of what it is. There's different styles of teaching, but what I do is I help visionaries really ground their visions and birth them into reality of whatever that entails. And it's not a set blueprint for everybody. You have to find what really works for you. And the way that that guy started to do his readings, I mean, that's brilliant. I think that's, if anything, it's adds in the entertainment to the service that he is providing. As long as it's a legit service, because then you can get people that are not, really tarot readers.
I could see somebody who maybe didn't have, and he really did believe that he was, he appreciated he was selling a fortune cookie, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But he really tried to offer each person something of value to walk away with. Like he really did try. Like he was a good guy that liked it, But I could see where somebody else could just get nefarious about it, right? For sure.
Well, it gets into that, that fine line with the money thing, when people start to look at it as being greedy or hoarding, that type of thing. I have always found that, when I go to spend money, I always say thank you to it. I always express gratitude when I am spending, and it comes back. And the more that I'm honest, or since the food prices has gone up, you go out to eat, it here in Houston, it's outrageous. So it's like close to $40, even if you go sit at a restaurant by yourself with the tip. So I always try to make sure that I am still giving a good enough tip, because they need the money as well.
It's part of the system. It's part of the ecology. Yeah, it's part of the system, It's funny. I had this one fellow that I worked with frequently, and I used to be sloppy with my money. As a matter of fact, when I handed it to him, it was, sometimes disheveled, and there was maybe a crumpled one in there, and there was what I'm saying, it was just like almost as bad as just a here, kind of idea. And he pulled me aside one day and he says, "I can't stand this any longer, David." He says, "You got to treat money like a lover." He says, when you get your money, you put all the heads facing the right direction, and you appreciate it, and you respect it, and you treat it in such this way that and it'll always come back as that good lover then too, right? And he taught me these ways, of how to work with my money in a creative way, because accountant I am not, etc. Right? I'm a right brainer, right? Totally. So the marriage between the two, I found in my life, and I was born to poverty, and I have found abundance. That frequency you talk about is freaking real. Don't kid yourself. And once you get it and you can sing it, you're never going back. I promise, right? But I had to learn it, and it's sometimes just these very simple things. You've already dropped a few names here that I'm like, oh my God, I know exactly what she's talking about. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? There's so many cool teachings out there, even starting back with the Dale Carnegie and Zig Ziglar stuff, right? You know what I'm saying? Like really solid teachings on, the Franklin time system and money management. And there's so many really cool systems out there for even a not accountant like me to be able to catch up to.
I'm not an accountant either. I am still on this learning journey. I'm currently diving into trust. So, and that's, going the next level. I'm no expert by any means. When I got into high school and I got into economics, I started skipping that class because it just went over my head. It didn't the money system never made sense to me. Now I know why. Yes. But yeah, it is, I always say treating your money as your best friend.
Yeah.
You wouldn't let anybody disrespect your best friend. You would always respect it. And that's what I am doing, because I want to build generational wealth.
Correct.
So, and have that solid foundation and really claim back my sovereignty and, claim who I am and what my birthright is that they took away from us when we were born.
Totally. Now you're of course you're just on the precipice of the rabbit hole, right? Yeah, and I will share you very clearly. You could speak frankly on this show, okay? Because I can appreciate that's not all welcome everywhere, right? So for sure. But there is a few dynamics that are taking place as far as Draconian Empire and the changes and the shifts that are taking place here, right? There's rumors, of course, Nasera Jessera, right?
Oh yes, I've been following that.
Yeah. And so, the Saint Germain funds, the all this stuff. So there is actually stuff brewing in the background
Mhm.
for decades, right? To actually get us to this place where, and even the sovereign individuals, free man on the lands. And I mean, I can appreciate so often they get considered these rebels and these reckless and you know what? And yes, some of them are extreme, but they're holding space to stretch the bubble a bit further, because very soon here, to be honest, what they're saying you're going to find is not a lie. There's actually truth in what they're sharing about the legal system and the financial system and all of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? And these poor conspiracy theorists are like, can't you guys just freaking get it? Da, 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 da. And everyone's just, sheeping along, right?
I know I sound like a broken record, but
totally, I hear
you're
you.
exactly right. This I follow that. This past week, the United States released sanctions on Zimbabwe, which were placed during the Bush administration, and we know what happened during the Bush administration. So, and I follow what's happening with BRICS because I feel like that's going to be a huge tie into it.
Well, because the whole world economy is based upon U.S. debt, not even the U.S. dollar anymore, but the U.S. debt.
Yeah,
and so BRICS challenges that whole system, and and away it goes. It's not because BRICS is going to win; it's because they both go down, right? It's this very, and the prophecy was clear. This was the year the Draconian Empire ends. The end of 2024 is when all of this financials and actually the borders go away, and I'm saying, we become much more tribal. And every time I hear, and it seems nothing sacred, every time I hear about this new dark corner over here that just got squished, I'm like, yes, and yes, and they've changed that, and the more people get righteous indignation, and that's going to inspire them to also seek for alternatives. Does it make sense? Not only has the trust, but has the trust been lost? That's already a thing of the past, right? But now we're in a situation here of preparing to start this new thing, right? And it's people like yourself. Absolutely. I mean, I do my work, but this isn't what I'm sharing perpetually, but it is people like yourself, Jennifer, that you're front line kind of in there. I'm convinced of it. When it all goes, well, Nasara Jasara, in a gist, basically what that says is that each one of us has value on this planet in just by showing up. And that value, if you like, has a money figure or a number figure or what have you attached to it, right? A bond, gets created in your name. But right now, somebody else owns it, and check your passport for your owner's name, right?
Not only do they own it, they're trading in stocks on different
on
countries and making billions of dollars underneath your name.
So what happens is when government of Canada, government of US, government of New Zealand, they all go plop, those bonds are now yours again. Could you imagine waking up tomorrow morning a trillionaire? Could you imagine?
Yes, I can.
Right? Yeah. Most people couldn't.
I am ready. Like, I know exactly what I would do.
And so now your whole world is based upon what it is that you want and you're bringing to the table, not your bank account, right? So, the house you live in fits your needs, not your bank account, right? Because you're a trillionaire, and so too is your neighbor, and so too is, and sure, there might be some extra spending for the first couple of years, but after a while, that's going to wear thin. When you get up 5 years later, after you've blown all the money, when you've gotten all the toys and all the stuff, and all that, and you've kind of worn your way out of that, what are you going to do first thing in the morning, 5 o'clock, or 5 years later, we'll say, while you're sipping your first cup of coffee, what are you going to do with your day, right? You know what I'm saying? And that's I'm convinced when people will actually find purpose. Right? I'm convinced of it, right? Most crime is based upon lack of some form. It could be a lack of respect, what I'm saying? But still, most crime, period, is lack. But if you're worth $1 trillion and I'm worth $1 trillion, like, whatever, take it. I got a new one. I wanted a new color anyway, right? Kind of an idea. I mean, most people can only think, and maybe you've encountered different, but most people can only technically think about 2.5 times their current income. Right? There's this bubble around them. So even manifesting and thinking about what $1 million look like today, right? That for so many people on the planet, that's fiction.
Well, that's why a lot of people, when they get into the law of attraction, they go and they manifest $1 million and it never works. And then they're like, this doesn't work. Because your mindset can't wrap its head around your ego saying you're full of bullshit. So you do tears up. But you're exactly right. When I had my awakening, which my story was, I had a divine experience and Kundalini awakening, still trying to make sense of all of it. But I was hearing a voice, which was creator source energy that was talking to me.
Yeah.
And the messages that I kept hearing was that I was part of the cleanup crew. So I call myself a paver. I am here to help pave the way to start the foundation of what's going to start being built. And that not to worry about the fundage and what downloads I was getting. So I have, David has seen me on this journey. I'm a jack of many trades. So I am very multi-talented. So I have several different projects in mind. One of my big ones is my Interversity, which is a
talk about that. Totally.
Yes, it is a interversity instead of university for visionaries. I learned along this journey that even if you are setting out to be a soulpreneur, entrepreneur, whatever you want to call yourself, build a business, offer a service, get ready, because you're going to have all of the other quadrants, not just like money, but you're going to need mental, your mind space, what's going on in your head, your spiritual. Is your vessel clean? You know, are you fully infested with parasites so you can't think clear and you can't make those business decisions because nothing's going to happen, because magic doesn't happen until you make a decision. All of it goes together. So I do the spiritual as well as the tech. So I teach people how to do it, and that can go from building a website to putting together a fancy brochure, social media maintenance, copywriting, how to package your services, automation. I pull in a lot of human design and astrology. For those of you who are into human design, I am a 5/1 manifester on the incarnation cross of Dominion. So that's why I'm a paver and I help build foundations. And also you can learn about the universal laws, alchemy, esoteric knowledge, some occult wisdom, and how to tie that all into birthing your vision into reality. So
Totally.
yes.
I love all that. You know, like, oh my goodness, seriously. To be honest, I got to admit, like I train healers how to heal. I train, readers how to read. And yes, it's all about introducing them to themselves, and they have to be fully developed. The whole medicine wheel has to be addressed, right? All the directions.
Absolutely.
And because you are that center alchemy, and it has to, if you don't, you get a flat tire if you don't, right? So, if one of them's not working, you get a flat tire, right? So, and so the dynamic is, I understand all that stuff, but I swear the biggest hiccup for most of, because healers want to heal, they don't want to run business, right? They don't know how, they don't, I'm saying, all of this stuff. And I can appreciate most healers don't make enough money to be able to hire it out, right? And so being able to kind of integrate all of that together in a way where you pick up a few skills and you keep it simple, but you can still do the job, right? I think I know that is a service that has been needed for a while, right? I mean, you just don't see it out there often enough. My students receive some teachings on it, but we don't have I teach business building and some marketing and, some of the basics, kind of an idea. But I appreciate that the one-on-one that you're talking about here. I talk about that, taking the individual person, per, and helping groom that and help, develop that, for sure.
Well, Rise University, I myself too have, not been able to afford some things. This is why I know most of what I know, because I investigate. If I don't know it, I'm going to learn it. And tech is in my mission file. So I'm like Neo in the Matrix. If I don't know a program, I ask for the download and it comes, and I miraculously know how to do the program. I have had programmers like, you've had no formal training. I'm like, no, self-taught. But Rise University, I do make it affordable for people to learn the basics. Okay. A lot of my clients, what I like to walk them through is they have this perception that the 3D matrix has put out that they have to have their business done this way. Okay. They have to have a website. They have to have this. They have to have this for them to be successful. And I got caught in this trap big time. I built everything and wore myself out, crashed and burned, and I couldn't generate, I didn't generate enough energy to get the content out there.
Yeah.
So Rise University has it's $4 to join, lifetime membership. We are a private membership association, so it's like a private school that's a lifetime member. That gets you the free course that I was telling you about, the $4 course. It's at 6 hours. It's 6 different modules. It's how to balance and become the alchemist within. I use the medicine wheel in it, so it's jam-packed with a lot of information. There's also
you sold me. I'll spend my $4, no problem. Yeah, we're done here, I'll sign it up.
There's free training in there. I have a forum, which is the library. It consists of all sorts of different information that you can search, in a private group. For those, if you want to tier up, $22, that gives you group coaching, things like that. If you want to sit in a mastermind with other people and learn how to do your business, ask me questions, that's available, as well as some more extensive training. For those who are not tech savvy and do not want to do it, I have a freelance business called Unity Works Agency. And underneath Rise University, you can hire me. You can jump on a call and I work with you. Okay. Not everybody needs the full-blown website at first. And if you're not in that financial realm, I will work with you to get you to a point to the next level. On my podcast, I have been interviewing all sorts of different type of soulpreneurs. And I have one lady who is, been in the coaching industry. She's made millions and millions of dollars. She's probably got 500,000 people on her newsletter list. And I have another lady who has had no business coaching, and she's got more people on her Facebook group than the other lady. So it just really all depends. And one's only been working on Facebook, runs her whole business on Facebook, and makes a pretty good income for herself on the side. So it really just depends on what matches you. But I am here to help you kind of figure that out and what your next steps are to go.
Totally. Again, you have that business structure, right? And so much of it, again, was right down, whether it's metaphysical teaching or business or who are you, right? The know thyself dynamic, right? Even health, know your blood type, know your body type, know your, what I'm saying? And of course, spirituality as well. Who are you? Right. And how does that fit, into the world, right? I'm a firm believer that, everything belongs, right? Or else it wouldn't be here, right? Kind of idea. And so the dynamic is such as, what are you bringing to the table that matches you? Never mind your cousin or your aunt or, what I'm saying, or the neighbors or, and I can appreciate that takes courage, what I'm saying, but dancing that shadow work and finding out who you are, how you are. I learned firsthand I didn't want to be a millionaire. That's why I can share that teaching, right? I came from poverty to the big pile of gold to, I found out very quickly that it owned me, right? And that wasn't actually the lifestyle I wanted. But they told me what I did. I rang the bell, ding, 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 and I expected, the parade and the but honest to goodness, when all those fat zeros showed up, I'm in a place of obligation now. I'm in a place of responsibility now. I'm in a place of, it's a whole different perspective. For sure. Everybody wants to be king until you're the king. Trust me, right? And then that throne gets heavy, right? For sure. And so it's about finding out what you really want in life, right? And I know I'm poo-pooing maybe on the American dream. Is my sense of get lots of stuff, expensive stuff, right? Kind of idea.
It's only called the American dream because you got to be asleep to believe it.
We're going to quote that for sure. Yeah.
Dream. I think that was George Carlton who said that, I believe, but it's so true.
Totally it is. Yes, I get it. And so figure out what you want and start manifesting it. And that's again part of the teachings that she's talking about here is, she's going to plug that in. Let's take dream board or vision board to a stereo. I swear I've known clients who took a picture, posted it on their dream board, 10 years later found the dream board and they're living in that house. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like that house, never mind just a house, but that house that they, and these things work. They just do. We've got so many cool tools and so many, tips and tricks and all that stuff. But it all boils down right still to who are you, right?
Who are you?
Who are you?
One of my purposes here that I have found through human design is that I impact people. So I'm going to impact you into your next evolution. The 5-1 in human design can come across as the general. So sometimes I do get a little bit drill sergeant. I bring you back to your center because I can recognize where all the resistance comes up in the process of you birthing your vision. But I also am here to reflect back to you who you are, not what you think you are, not what other people have told you are, but who you are. So this is why I pull in astrology and human design, because it plays a huge part in the process of you birthing your vision out into reality, how you're going to work, how you're going to approach things. And, like me, I was going into all of these different coaches, different programs for business. Not that I learned so much through the process, but most of them were run by generators, which they have a lot of energy. I'm a manifester. I don't. So when I couldn't get to the end, but I would be tired and I would need to take a break, and then I'd beat myself up because I'm like, well, why can't I do it? Well, no, it's not that I can't. I just need to pace myself a little bit different or do it a little bit differently compared to the way of the information that's given to me. And boy, was that a game changer. So that's why I was like, okay, I need to help other people do this, because there are so many different templates out there. Not one person has the perfect template. They obtain all good information. It's just finding what works for you.
I couldn't agree more. And I mean, this last month, maybe even 6 weeks now, we've been talking about awakening, right? And the reason I invite, different people is because everyone's come to the table and you know what, even the story itself, and I couldn't help but notice that you didn't go into quite enough detail there for me. And I'd love to hear more about your personal experience, what your awakening process, you know what I'm saying? And I honor all the teachings you've shared, but if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind. So like I said earlier in the beginning of the video, I didn't have the best upbringing. It was very abusive in the household, from child sexual abuse to physical, spiritual, mental, all of it. And I could probably do another video on government projects too. I've been dabbling in that, but needless to say, I rebelled when I got older, and alcohol was my drug of choice where I would escape. So I was a revolving door. I'd get sobriety for a year, maybe a year and a half, and then I would relapse, and just horrific all the way up until I was about 37. And 37, I was to the point where I really didn't want to be here on this planet, but God did not want me to leave, because there were times that I could have died. I've had near-death experiences, and I had this divine experience. And what happened was I blacked out for 3 days sober.
Okay.
and all sorts of things started to happen. And I had woke up in my family home, not knowing, that 3 days had disappeared, and that caught my attention. Like, okay, what is going on? Because I was sober. Through those 3 days, I had to go to the emergency room, and they did a test, and it came back that I didn't have anything in my system. And so from that moment that I woke up to like 2 weeks, I was all sorts of crazy things, like hearing things, seeing things. I thought, well, I didn't think, I know now, or I feel now, that there were 3-letter agencies watching me outside my house. I was seeing the Hat Man was following me around, reptilians, shapeshifters. Like, I was full blown on, blasted open.
Well, to be honest,
And
I'm waiting for you to say something strange.
oh,
Because you're in the
yeah,
right place. I know
man.
exactly where you're at, totally. Go ahead.
Yes. So, I remember I was at the house, and I was sitting in my room, and it was like the walls were breathing.
Mm.
And I took LSD when I was younger, and I kept thinking, "Oh my God, I'm having a flashback." So, like, what is this? Because that's what it
Totally.
felt like.
I hear you. Yeah.
And I remember telling myself, I was like, okay, just lay down, go to sleep. I put my car in the driveway. I locked the house up. I went to sleep. And the next day I woke up and I was fully clothed with makeup on. And I walked into the kitchen, and it looked like I had had somebody over for dinner. And my car was out of the driveway and parked in front of my house, and not remembering. And I called my sister and told her to take me to the hospital because something was going on. And
Yeah.
the whole time I'm having this voice comfort me and tell me that, you're going to be okay. It's not that severe. You're not going crazy, just breathe. And I went into an outpatient thing, and they were trying to give me medication. And this voice was telling me that,
Well, the first thing they're going to
um,
try to do is reduce your dopamine levels and stuff like that. And that's actually one of the worst things you can do when someone's having a Kundalini awakening, right? If they lose control, even the little bit of control they have when you start playing with the dopamine and stuff like that, right? So I know exactly where you're at there. That's a very fine line that you were walking there for sure. I'm
well,
glad to see
it was
that I can have this conversation with you because that doesn't always work out so well, right? So, totally. Yeah.
my body rejected anything that they gave me.
Awesome.
And the voice kept telling me, don't take it. You're going to be okay. And I was fine. And at the time, I was working in a country club. And that's what kind of started my journey into healing. The first thing that I did do was the first thing I did, through the other times I was trying to get sober, was I went back to AA. But that in itself is an infiltrated program.
Sure. Bit of a
And
cult.
the one thing that I did do different this time was, they say take one day at a time. So anytime anybody asked me how many days you had, I always said just today. And that put me into mindfulness. And then I started to notice that the universe was teaching me things in correlation through me going back through the steps, which
Well,
this
and
time
so
I
there,
knew was,
I also want to point out again that although we talk this negativity, a tool is still a tool, and there's a place
yes,
for everything,
yes,
right? So even
yes.
when we're sharing, we dislike this, we're also recognizing very clearly that that there's value in this universe, for it to exist, for it to be, for it to, all that stuff. And so medicine can come from a variety of different places, even ones that you don't necessarily wouldn't necessarily condone even, right?
I got I got more benefits out of the steps this time instead of going into meetings, because the steps are designed for a spiritual awakening.
Yeah, yeah.
That's exactly what it was. And mine was a living amends, nothing that, I had, I can't even count how many times that was the time that I had gone back, 10th time or whatever. So I knew it was a living amends, and I did it for me. I didn't do it for anybody else. I did it for me. And from that was October of 2017. And the voice kept telling me, you know, something along the lines of like, build it and they will come. So I started my first website. I think you were in my group. That was the Garden of Enlightenment. That's when all that started.
Oh my, okay, yes.
So, and they told me that I was going to, the voice told me that I was going to get let go of my position. And all I kept praying for was, you know, give me severance pay. Okay. 3 months severance pay, I'll be good. I'll invest it right back into the business.
Yeah.
I knew all the way up to the day that I was going to get laid off. When my boss turned the corner to come get me from my desk, I was clearing out my browser and the IT guy was remote logging in to lock me out of my computer. So when she pulled me into the office and let me go and offered me severance pay, I was speechless. And so she said, she goes, do you have anything to say? And I stood up and I said, I knew this was coming. That's why I'm handling it so well. And I walked out. And all I had to do was grab my purse because I had already cleaned out everything.
I started, exactly, totally.
Already started. Yeah. And so they wanted me to sign some legal papers, and I told her I wanted to take that home to review before I got
out of that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, to get before I got my severance. And I came back that Friday to get my severance pay to give, you know, sign paperwork. And her and the HR manager pulled me into the office, and both of them were like, how did you know? and I stood back and I was like, what do you mean? How did I know? Like, who told you that you were going to get laid off?
Oh, assholes.
And I go, well, you know, that little voice inside of you that no one really listens to. Mm-hmm. And they said, you know, my boss goes, yeah, I go, I'm listening to it. And that voice is God. And God says that I don't need to be here anymore and I'm going to be okay. And that, you know, I thanked her for I mean, she just started bawling. She wasn't expecting me to say that. Right. But I mean, I was honest and I gave the praise, and they gave me 4 months severance.
That's the power of truth, right? You know, that's the, you know, I mean, that not only did they not come back with, yeah, well, you had to hear from somebody in doubt, but when you speak truth, you know what I'm saying, it has that impact, and people do weep and goosebumps. And yeah, you know what I'm saying, good on you. You hit him with the best baseball bat ever, this whack of truth, right? You
yes. Well, I got 4 months severance instead of 3.
Good for you.
And so, yeah, after that, I got in my car and I was like, whatever is talking to me, I am going to listen. You've got my full attention, because I knew that it was coming. And also, guys, when you know something is coming, throughout, that happened in 2017. I got laid off in 2019. There were situations that would happen that I knew that didn't happen that way, but like the universe changed something that would put me in a position to start going down that path to exit out. So that happened in November of 2019, and we know what happened in 2020. So I've been full steam ahead since then and diving into my journey. But yeah, that's my awakening.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. Welcome. Because while I'm listening to you, there's about a half a dozen or a dozen people in the back of my brain going, yeah, I hope they're watching this one. You know, totally, right? You know, because, you know, although our stories are so unique, by sharing them, you know, people can find their own gems in it too, right? They can identify and they can anchor in. And, you know, unfortunately, we're coming to the top of the hour here, but I want to, and I know our listeners want to too. We want to, and we are a promise. We're going to explore some of this government stuff that you kind of mentioned a little bit too. Yeah, you know, for sure. I'm hip deep in all of that, and
I know you are, man. Yeah. Let's deep dive.
Yeah, exactly. And so there will come a day, I promise, sooner than you think, maybe, where we're going to have that conversation, and maybe even like a couple of weeks worth, because there's just so many people, not just yourself, that we could come on and really deep dive into this, you know, kind of, conspiracy theory, my goodness, you know what I'm saying? There's just some stuff people got to know. These bullies are awful. Yeah, honest to goodness. And good news is that a part of the Draconian Empire coming to an end is that, the draining of the swamp, the, call it whatever cliches that you want, dynamic, but it is my belief system, and not just mine, but in many circles that I connect with around the world, that we've already won, if you want to use those terms. But there is a mess to be cleaned up here, and that includes, unfortunately, so much of the trauma that is generational, so much of the the bullying, and I know I'm absolutely putting icing on top of it when I use that word, right? For sure. But there's been so much tragedy and so much harm, honest to goodness, and that was and is purely draconian in mentality. I promise we're never going back to that. For those of you out there who have suffered in some way, shape, or form, ritual abuse, or being it's singled out, or there's just so much. And I know that some of our listeners are listening, in on that are recovering from some of that damage, right? Themselves, and just know that the truth is just right there. You're not going to be called crazy for long, I promise.
No. And you're not alone.
You're not alone, my God.
You're not alone.
Totally.
I've had to stand in my truth regardless of what happens with the backlash, but I know that I'm not crazy, and I'm not going to be told that I am crazy.
Well, it's not about that anyway, Totally. Yeah. There's a lot. We're very careful about how we use the C word around here. Sure. What are you talking about? Yeah. Only because saying too many people use it too flippantly, right? If it doesn't match their tiny box of awareness, then you must be crazy. And if that's the case, I'll be crazy right along with you. And so we're going to invite you back. Definitely. We've only just looked at the top. We haven't even really gone deep yet. But I so honor and appreciate what you're sharing with the world. And listeners, please just check out what this lady's about. Pay her $4, I'll meet you there, right? Kind of right, yeah. And
thank you.
There's something new happening, and Jennifer and your ilk that are out there. There's some amazing circles, and allow yourself to be drawn to your tribe. Allow yourself to be drawn. There really is the inclusion of spirit in everybody's world these days, and so find your circles, find your tribes. They're available, and I'm convinced. I'm pretty convinced I'll be joining Jennifer's. So
I'd love to have you.
Totally. So one last time before we kick you off, and we all got to go. How can we reach you?
You can go to riseuniversity.com. That is the main website. There's a chat bot. You can search Jennifer Nunez on Facebook. All my social media is on the website, and there's a ton of information, guys. Have a field day.
Perfect. Awesome. See you soon, Jennifer, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, David.